videos are built right here?
Yeah.
Awesome. I think it's going to work.
So this is a bit of a different presentation for us. Typically, we've been doing a bit of a longer form one. We were actually just in South America for the last 3.5 months, and we're doing a similar set of workshops in Sao Paulo and Rio and Beijing and Bogota, and then we did one in Miami. So it's something that's really important to us because we both work in the different realms of digital experience, digital strategy, branding, advertising, all that. And the thing that kind of links us together more than anything is this sense that the humanity has kind of been taken out in a lot of ways. So when we talk about Google AdWords, if you ever start playing around with it, you'll see that it's very, I don't know, you have to pick sets of people, and they're just kind of these blogs with no names, and you just start targeting with all these dollars, and it kind of takes the humanity out of it. And we're all trying to support these mom and pop shops down the street. The thing that they have is a lot of humanity. They build relationships. They get to know you. There's like a face, there's a recognition, and the wink wink, and the little freebie here and the little freebie there. And ironically, that's how all our businesses and charities and organizations really should behave. But in this kind of era of digital tools and efficiency things, we tend to forget that it all needs to be a little more human. So that's going to be the main thing that we're going to be going on. So to keep it very human, we're going to start with something about as human as we can.
So like RP was saying, we both come from very corporate backgrounds originally. I've worked in advertising agencies for a number of years, I guess a good solid decade or so, and we tend to get lost in this idea of people are numbers, they are demographic brackets, and sometimes it's really nice to look back at what people actually are, because your target market is more than just a target market. They're actual people with needs and desires and wants, and how can we tap into that? So I actually I don't know if you can actually hear me but I'll yell really loud. So I wanted to actually start with a reading that we actually just found recently that I think is actually a really nice kind of level setting, and it's written by a poet, philosopher, and marine zoologist who actually works within the Pacific Northwest and is actually quite involved in the charitable world as well. So it's on giving. So giving is a difficult and almost contemplative art form that has to be practiced to be done well. To learn to give is almost always the simple, sometimes heartbreaking act of just giving again. To stop giving in any situation is to call an end to relationship. Giving is essence of existence and a test of our character. It asks deep questions about our relationship to others, to ourselves, and strangely, to time itself. All gifts change with the maturation of their recipients. To give well, appropriately, and often is to establish a beautiful seasonal symmetry between the urgency within us that wishes to be generous and the part of the world that is suddenly surprised and happy to receive. To give generously but appropriately, and then, most difficult of all, and as the full apotheosis of the art, with feeling in the moment and spontaneously, has always been recognized as one of the greatest human qualities. Giving is not done easily. Giving is difficult. Giving well is in fact a discipline that must be practiced and observed over years to be done properly. The art often involves giving the wrong thing to the wrong person at the wrong time and learning how to do the opposite through time and trial. It means getting beyond the boundaries of our own needs. It means understanding another and another's life. It acknowledges implicitly that we ourselves must be recipients of things we cannot often identify or even find ourselves. Giving has an enormous horizon and a breadth that is hard to compass. It is both a practicality. It creates bonds and dependencies necessary to our communal well-being, but it is also an essentiality, the essence of giving being that the other person is simply alive and by corollary, not only a privilege to know, but a living privilege themselves, who has the astonishing ability to acknowledge both the somebody who has given and the something that is given to them. As far as we know, no other corner of creation but a human being has the ability to fully acknowledge the spirit of another in this way. Giving means paying attention and creating imaginative contact with the one to whom you're giving. It is a form of attention itself, a way of acknowledging and giving thanks for the lives, giving thanks for the lives other than our own. The first step in giving may be to create a budget, to make a list, or to browse a storefront. The essential deed is done through the door contemplation of the person, the charity, the cause, finding the essence of the need, the person, or the relationship. Out of this image comes the surprise, the recipient, comes the surprise of understanding and the ability again to surprise the recipient by showing that somebody else understands them. And through a display of giving generosity, can even identify needs they cannot admit themselves. The full genius of gift giving is found when we give what a person does not fully feel they deserve, but that does not overstretch the point. It is the appropriate but surprising next step in their lives. It disarms and moves and empowers all at the same time. While gratifying the one who gives beyond most everyday satisfactions. To give is to make an imaginative journey and put oneself in the body, the mind, and the anticipation of another. To give is to make our own identities more real in the world by committing to something specific in the other person and something tangible that could represent that quality. To give is also to carry out the difficult task of putting something of our own essence in what we have given. The perfect gift may be tiny and inexpensive, but accompanied by a note that moves the recipient. It can be enormous, extravagant, and jaw-dropping as a courageous act of flamboyance and devil-may-care love. But to give appropriately always involves a tiny act of courage, a step of coming to meet, of saying, I see you. And appreciate you, and I'm also making an implicit promise for the future. Little wonder then that the holiday giving, that is none of these, that is automatic, chore-based, walking around the mall-based, exhausts us, debilitates us, and in the end is quite often subtly insulting to the one whom we eventually give the random item. Better to spend a long time sitting in our armchairs in silent contemplation of those who want to gift, looking for the imaginative doorway that says, I know you and see you, and this is how I give thanks for you, which may bring us to the perfect object, but also may bring us instead to write a short, heartfelt message that acknowledges their place in our lives. Cliches are cliches often because they are so stubbornly true. It is the thought that counts, but even more is the imagination behind the thought that counts, made tangible through gifts that find their definition through being twice blessed. So it's a little bit long, but I think it's a really, it's a little bit long, but I think it's a really nice remembrance because we get so stuck in this corporate idea of when you're trying to sell something, when you're trying to get people to donate, to volunteer, to be a part of your organization in some way, we always think of it as what is the give and take? What is the thing that we're selling? What is the product that we need to provide to be able to get people to want to be involved with us? And sometimes it's nice to remember that it's a relationship that you're building, that you're putting yourself out there just as much as the person who wants to be involved. So the first one we want to really look at is to give is to make an imaginative journey and put oneself in the body, the mind, and the anticipation of another. So this is the point that Arpi was saying originally about how we so often try and think of our target markets as these numbers, you know, the grouping that you have in your AdWords account. And sometimes we need to take a step back and look at who are those people really to actually be able to create a relationship with them, but also to create an engaging strategy.
So as change makers, you are dealing with a lot of different people. You are impacting a lot of different lives. You are trying to engage such a wide range of people. You're trying to address so many different needs. So who are these people though? there's a lot of different scenarios under which you're working. Donors, this is the single most important one for most of you. As an organization, we feel as though we need to be supported, that we deserve to have funds to keep our valuable and essential work going, that it's a responsibility, a social responsibility to be supported by it. But on the opposite end of this relationship, there's a human relationship that needs to be built. And in that, what is it that donors need out of this relationship? It's not to say that it's a give or take, but it's understanding the context under which we build this relationship. They have a difficult choice. There are so many of you asking for donations all the time, and rightfully so, but for the potential donor, they have so many people talking to them, and it's like any of us, when all of our families talking to us, it is a stressful moment. So for an organization to successfully gain donors, we need to speak to them in a way where they feel heard, they feel important, that they feel like you are the right place for them to settle their vision, their future, their hopes, etc.
Speak over here to make it easier. So another group is volunteers. So I guess one of the things that we tend to forget about is, again, these people are looking for some way to get involved. They have a reason for why they want to be there, and it's really easy for us to understand, what is your cause? What is the thing that your organization is doing and trying to solve? And it's very easy to think about what it is that you're trying to accomplish and putting that forward and hoping that people will feel connected with that as well and want to come and volunteer their time. And volunteering is just as much about giving as donating is. So one thing that I would almost even love to hear from some of you guys right now is, why do you think that people volunteer with your organizations? Just anyone who wants to throw it out. Like, what is the thing that they get back from you?
They're looking to join a tribe. They're looking for community.
Anybody else? Yeah.
And make a difference in an issue that they feel strongly about.
Personal satisfaction.
Personal satisfaction? Okay. Anybody else?
Have experience.
Have experience, so kind of like to be able to get more involved in other things after that?
Yeah. I think too, we often align ourselves with organizations that share similar values. So if something has touched your life in a way that you're looking for something, where there's a value match, I think that's a big part of volunteering too.
Yeah, definitely. So shared values and seeing that connection. I think that it's all of those things, and I think it's really great to remember them, and especially when it comes to something like shared values, because when you're talking to people that are potential donors, and when you're talking to people who are potential volunteers, so you're creating potentially different experiences for them. But the problem is that you don't have the time or the resources to actually create unique experiences to try and speak to different people at different times. It might be that you're speaking to them in different places, or you're going through, if you're looking for volunteers, you probably come up here and say, in the 1 minute session, say, I really need 5 people who can help me put on this event this weekend. We're really running low. But you wouldn't necessarily do that for donors. But overall, what your experience is and what you put forward needs to address all of those people, so finding the commonality. So another one is attendees. I'm sure you can guess by now, we're going to go through kind of the different use cases here, or the different types of audiences that you have. But I think it's really important to identify what it is that these people want, because an attendee is someone who is going to have a fairly low commitment level, but who still feel touched in some sort of way. So what is it that those people need? And it's really good to kind of sit down and identify that as well, because you want someone who can come to your events, or who can come, this is actually a community session to try and resolve what can be done about the missing Aboriginal women. So there's a reason why a lot of these different people are here, why they feel like they've been touched on that. But as an organization, you want to find a way to have those people continue to come out and continue to be engaged.
The other one that obviously is very critical in British Columbia, particularly in the last 5 years, has been action takers. We're more than ever looking for people who want to go above and beyond the petition, people that want to go above and beyond donating. We want people that will be a physical force, people that with their voice can actually transform things. Because crowds move things. We've seen that numerous times. You know, with Bernie Sanders, his movement is largely because of the sheer population it's created. So we need to understand that these people are different. They are looking for a different type of experience, and we need to engage with them in a slightly different way. Again, your strategy, how you want to engage them, even your own platform needs to be shifted in a way. So we'll touch on some of that as we go on here. But important through all this is this idea of making identities, having these people connect to something. And we've heard it in the room here. There is a connection that needs to happen, shared values, a tribe. It's a very common human trait. And as we've kind of moved into the realm of digital, some of these have been lost. You know, they've been transformed to a different color button or an email that is this version versus that version. It's a challenge to make something perfect. It's impossible, but that's the problem with perfect. It doesn't exist. But what we can do is actually make an attempt to take that one step forward, so then hopefully they take an extra step towards us as well.
So I just want to take a super quick step, I guess, off to the side a little bit. You know, the reason why we wanted to talk about who it is that you're dealing with, or who it is that you're trying to entice towards your organization versus a different cause, you know, which has its own issues, but you know, it's this idea that we really need to get inside the heads and the humanity of the people that we are talking to. You know, sometimes it really helps to actually even put together a persona, figure out who those people are, what they want, what they care about, because that's how we can get back to remembering why they're there or why they want to be involved with us. You know, we all have our personal reasons for why we're involved with the causes that we care about, and you know, I'm sure that there's a little bit more to just getting paid, but you know, there's always that human element and that human reason. And so one of the nice things that has come out of this whole kind of digital resurgence that's happened recently is this new kind of career path called user experience. So we touched on that a little bit, but it's really important because of this whole idea of design thinking. So people have really started to talk about it recently, and it's become very trendy. But the reason behind it is because it really is, how do we take this idea of the digital space or any product that you're building or any, you know, relationship that you're building, and remember that there's a human element behind it, that the people who are using it, the people you're talking to, are all humans, and they all have different things that they need, but you also have a business need. You know, you have a business need that you have to get funding. You have to get enough people coming to your events. You have to actually push the dial on your mandate. So this whole idea of design thinking, when we really break it down, it actually just comes down to the fact that innovation, really at the core of it, comes out of considering the humanity of what you're trying to build. What are the implications and what are the possible backsides? And then also, what can you do technically? Because not everyone will have the same abilities, but being able to utilize technologies that become available, and then still keeping in mind your business needs. So if you can kind of find the middle between all three of those and making sure that you keep that humanity in it, that's where you can really become more innovative. So I wanted to share a case study super quickly. See if it plays. All right, well, when it was loud, it's way more impactful. Okay, well, either way, I'm just going to talk specifically about that one then. So I don't know if any of you actually saw that on TV. It was a campaign that was done for ICBC about a year and a half ago now. And the reason I want to talk about it is it's one that I'm really proud of, and it's something that I'm very interested and passionate about. It's actually a project that I worked on, and their issue was they needed to try and decrease distracted driving. At the time, most people who were working within that realm trying to address distracted driving were really going the kind of extremist route. It was, trying to show really graphic, gory details to say, this could be you. You need to stop your behavior. Distracted driving is such a large problem. There isn't necessarily like a metric where you can say, we decreased it by 5%, so yay us. You don't get those celebrations in the same way. And so what we did is we went and we talked to people and we did more research, and we found that the actual issue isn't necessarily the people with extreme behaviors, it's everybody, it's all of us, the ones who say, I just glanced at my phone super quickly, so I was being safe. It's that person who's texting while driving and their phone is up here and they're playing Pokemon Go, that's the person who's really dangerous. And so when it comes to shifting behaviors and perceptions, we had to go a way that tried to shock people out of that by using their own behaviors against them. And so in this case, it was effective because it was very short. People weren't expecting that it would end so quickly. And you can kind of see yourself in it. So it was a series of 3 videos, and they were all done. They were on TV, but they were also just done through online video, through a pledge campaign, through PSAs. So obviously they have a bit of a budget, so it's not necessarily something that can be done, but I think what you can pull from it is really being able to utilize research to find out what is that thing that your target demographic think about something, and how can you use that to inform something that you're doing. So if you're finding that you're not getting the donation or you're not getting the behavior shift that you need, sometimes it's about figuring out what people are already thinking and where is that disconnect that you can really play out. Yeah. And at the end of it, all it was asking is just to leave your phone alone. So really just keeping it simple and trying to take a big issue and make it feel achievable.
So emotion is a theme. We're trying to show you campaigns that elicit action. Greenpeace, classic, powerful, very action-oriented, to the point of offending people, but effective. They turn issues into something you can't ignore, similar to what Brittany was talking about, but in a way that polarizes culture. I'm not going to create a judgment on it, but I'm going to say that their approach works. They've gotten as big as they have because they are revolutionary. It is something that we can all take with us, because I know all of these organizations that generally exist anywhere try to exist within certain rules, and part of it's to keep donors happy, and part of it is because we're trying to do it the right way. But the reality is these guys do it in a very aggressive way. It works. I'm not trying to say that it's better, but there are pieces from that we can learn. There's a part to turning a campaign into a movement, and there's something about the way that they celebrate the grandness of the wins that they do have. So they take these big problems, they turn them into simpler movement statements. They try to distill it down to an action. They turn donors and volunteers into revolutionaries and into people that are really shifting the world. Now, all of these things add up to creating a tribe. Creating a tribe is something critical to the success of any digital campaign, and given the passiveness of the medium, it's increasingly hard. So we've all been on the mailing list from Delete Now and Forest Ethics, I can't remember their new name, and they try to create movements through email. It's difficult. So a lot of times it will come down to the campaign theme, it'll come down to the rallying cry, it'll come down to what is the single action you need, it'll come down to the celebration of those wins. And these are a lot of the common things we'll see when we talk about the themes that have worked.
So we'll also look at, just really quickly, is we didn't necessarily pick one individual organization that was working on this, but all of the work that's been done on the Enbridge pipeline, I think it's really fascinating because it's a great example of all different community groups coming together and working together, because as much as that is what causes a much bigger movement, unfortunately we don't see it often enough. And sometimes it takes these really big divisive issues to really do that. And so, this is a great example of how they really rallied people together, and also some of the celebrations that's happened because of it. So, in this one in particular, it really was a collaboration, and it really was, an alternate way of looking at taking a really big issue that people feel is outside of the realm of what's possible for them to do in their lives. And it was a situation where you saw so many different groups where, rather than trying to break down one big issue into smaller achievable causes, they really did just take every angle at it so that people could then see some part of that they could get behind, which is another really interesting way of going about it, and I think really does require everyone to work together and really a whole, massive tribe. But yeah, so that was a really good one, and I think one other thing to say about that as well is that that movement has been really amazing about also celebrating. So, having a lot of moments of appreciating people and appreciating those small victories and those small wins that have led up to big wins. So definitely created an experience through that.
So we're all here to find out how you design an exceptional experience. At the core, we need to understand what is an experience. At its foundation, it comes down to setting a place, setting a time. It's critical that there is a time associated with it. There's an emotion, particularly when it comes to becoming a change maker, to having an impact, or transforming something. Emotion is key. It can be jubilance, it could be sadness, it could be excitement, it could be anger. But emotion is such a transformative part of turning a campaign into a true experience.
So what we do is, at the core of it, is it transforms a mechanical digital relationship into a human one. So, it's looking at all of the different tools, all of the different systems that you're using, and how do you make that in and of itself a relationship. So, how do you create a story that you're telling people when you know that you have multiple different touch points? So you have different places that people are coming in, different things that people are engaging with, but how do you have one cohesive story, one cohesive voice, so that everything that you do builds on itself? So Arby mentioned before about Bernie Sanders. So this is a really interesting one. He really is in and of himself the face of a movement. He is an experience. He has created an experience. In terms of his brand, I would argue that it is that he is an unapologetic voice, willing to work relentlessly to bring access to basic services back to U.S. citizens. He is de-commodifying life. His unique angle, the take that he has on his cause, is that he's honest and he's authentic in a place and in a time when people feel like they're being lied to and that they aren't seeing everything that's happening. So he's actually done a really great job of, he has made it all about the people. He is one of the people. He isn't necessarily a politician. This is all about you. This is how you can gear up and be a part of the movement. It's, join us for this revolution. He might as well just be saying, join my tribe, let's all be one. And, that you might as well be the person standing up there instead of him. He's also really great at everything that came at him became a part of his persona. It became a part of the experience. Something as simple as a bird landed on his on his podium while he was speaking at one of the rallies, and he fully embraced the meme of Bernie Sanders and started moving forward with that. You know, it's really about, he knew exactly who the people who supported him were, and he found a way to turn it on them. So he started becoming what they were expecting of him. So this is you guys, and these are also all the people that you're talking to. So at the core of it is, how do you stand out? How do you make people know who you are in the sea of all of the other causes that are similar and completely different? You know, how do you make sure that you're the person that when that company knows that they need to support a cause for that year, that you're the one that they think of, or, you know, people want to volunteer with? Really what it comes down to is figuring out how to make yourself unique. So how do you stand out? How do you play up the uniqueness of what your organization does? Because even when you look at something like Greenpeace, you know, their cause is not unique. What they're doing is not necessarily very different. There are a lot of organizations, you know, including we have someone here from Raincoast who also does a lot of work all about the environment and the animals that are living within our environment and the oceans. So how do they stand out? And for them, it's that everything is a rallying cry, that they're willing to go above and beyond. So that is the way that they made themselves unique.
So the first step in giving may be to create a budget, to make a list, or to browse a storefront. The essential deed is done through the door of contemplation of the person, the charity, the cause, of finding essence of the need. This is basically when you wonder what you should be writing, you should read this sentence, because it really is a testament of what is important. Who are you writing for? What is the rallying cry? What is the tribe they want to be part of? How are you going to connect? We can all write, please donate to me, I need it, but that doesn't help. We need to make a statement. We need to make a cause. You know, one that is fantastic at this is Wikipedia. Wikipedia, I can't remember the exact stat, but they basically talk about the millions of people who read millions of articles, and the fact that your $5 is probably the best $5 you will ever spend in your life. How could you say no to such a thing? At the key, research. It's always worth the investment. This is Brittany's specialty, and she loves telling people that it's always worth the money because they always forget that it is. But it's fundamentally an ethnographic study. It's about understanding who these people are. It's understanding, you know, what brings them joy, what brings them anger, how can you connect with them on each of those pieces. To many, in marketing, we have this terrible term called an emotional trigger. What is it that will create the purchase, or create anticipation, or create awareness? And this generally comes down to the research. Who is this person? What can we do to connect with them? I'm sure all of you have done plenty of research, but in regards to digital campaigns and such, it is important to understand potentially the correlation between the donation size you're looking for and the person that may be, and the right medium to connect with them, etc. And something as simple as changing your ad strategy, your content strategy based on the donation size or targeting, landing pages, etc. This is all about creating the right experience for the right person on the right medium using the right content. And that truly is the foundation of a lot of what we're talking about today. Some great research tools. Talking to people, it is amazing. But talk to people that you might not know, because the people around you often tell you what you want to hear. So always be conscious of that bias. We have this thing called predictive analysis. If you happen to be on the grander side of charities, there are fantastic tools now that will match your database against other databases and give you, you know, added fields to identify their income, their location, types of activities they do, etc. So this is what we call big data. It's kind of creepy, but it's helpful depending on what side you're on. Paper prototypes. This is the idea that you're going to make a website. Maybe don't build it before you show it to somebody. Just draw it, talk to them, bring them in a room, just draw it on a board, explain the different pieces. More than anything is make sure that they're finding what they need. Surveys. Surveys are great, but they're bad if it's just like, are you happy? Am I doing something good? That's not helpful. You need to ask some very pointed questions where the insights are important. You can't lead them because a lot of questions are very leading and have a bias. Research panels, that's basically bringing people, ask them questions, but have them discuss amongst one another, potentially have them as regular resources. User tests. This is another amazing resource that we have today on the internet. There are several companies that basically allow you to send your website to somebody or your application, and they'll record it. Then you can see the feedback. You can ask them questions. Did they find what they're looking for? Did they understand your mandate? Would they participate in it? Who are the other organizations they think about when they go to your website? So user tests are another valuable resource.
One thing that I would say as well is, and it was kind of on there, but is also look at and talk to the people who don't support your cause. There's a lot of information that you can actually get from kind of doing what we would consider like negative feedback as well. So understanding why people don't support you or why people think that maybe your cause isn't necessarily worth as much in their time, because that will also help you to grow or to become a little bit more sustainable in your experiential strategy. It'll help you to understand, you know, what are the things that maybe people aren't understanding or what the disconnect is. Because sometimes if all you're doing is talking to people who are huge advocates of you, they already understand your cause, they already understand what you're trying to do, and so, you know, they're going to give you some false positives likely. So the next thing about finding your uniqueness. So once you have that research, once you have that information, and especially in this case, once, you know, if you've got some email campaigns under your belt, or if you have a database of donors or volunteers, you can start to look for some commonalities. So you can start to understand, you know, what are the things that really make those people who they are. So, you know, what are their habits? What are their interests, their location? You know, really coming down to it, you also want to understand what's their culture and what's their community. And I'm not speaking like culturally in the way that everyone is thinking culture right now, but culture really is, you know, if I'm someone who really loves outdoors activities, then that's great. That is a community that I can be a part of. But if I'm an avid, you know, ice climber, that's a very different culture that I have compared to other people within the outdoor communities. So really understanding who those people are, you can understand how you can speak to them more specifically, and then aligning with their community culture. And then finally, if there's any outliers or if there's any things about your community that are very specific or different than others, that's where you can really start to embrace some of those weirdnesses or the uniquenesses that maybe don't always feel like they're positive, but can often be. So really quick comparison, just a little bit to figure out what we're talking about here. I think it's important that, you know, everyone every once in a while, because this will change as well, is really understanding not only what your brand is, you know, outside of what your mandate is, but also what is the unique label that you have. So in this case, you know, I mentioned Greenpeace. So their brand is really that they will fight for the earth and the environment at any cost. That, you know, they're willing to put themselves out there and seem, you know, a little bit abrasive if that's what it takes. Because they're going to fight for the earth because it can't fight for itself. Their unique angle is that they make everything feel winnable. But at the end of the day, they also make it all feel absolutely necessary. So that banner that we showed was earlier was on their website. And it says that essentially taking care of the oceans is a human right. You know, they make it feel like it is up to us and that we have to be a part of it. Lead Now. So this is one where, you know, people are coming together. When people come together, they have the power to change. Their unique angle, though, is that they're really open to partnering with community groups and nonprofits to show strength in numbers. So again, not that many groups do that, and so it's very much about bringing more than just individual people together. So what are you? What is your organization? And I'm not going to put people on the spot right now to figure that out, but I would actually really love to kind of hear that in the following days and really learn more about your organizations as well, and what is that unique thing? What is that rallying cry?
Now we have another piece called the customer journey. This is another marketing speak component. It's also very common in user experience design.
Have any of you heard or worked with customer journeys? Yeah, a couple?
Okay, that's pretty good. That's about 1/4. The customer journey is probably the most valuable piece of UX that you should be applying to organization and anything you really do regarding strategy. The idea is simple. Choices are not binary. They're not if they do this, then they get that. Every choice comes after a very long, drawn-out process of contemplation, of awareness, of action, of building trust. The simplest way, and I hate to use this analogy, is it's kind of like dating. No one just decides from one minute to the next that I want to be in a relationship. It doesn't work like that, except if you're like 18, but otherwise, there's a lot of questions that go into it. Online dating is a fantastic analogy for it. You have an advertisement for yourself. You tell people things in a very limited way, then they meet you, it's very cautious, and then eventually it gets to action, eventually it gets to investment. This is the way that your businesses work online. I'm sorry to say it is like Tinder and online dating. They will not give you money the first time. They will probably not give you money the second time. I'd love to know some organization stats, but I can imagine that for some organizations, they may follow you for 2-3 years before they even give you money. What does that mean? It means that you need to be conscious of these steps. You need to have some sort of analytics along the way to identify where people are. At a large company, you basically have what you call like a large automation system or a CRM that basically scores leads throughout the process. As a small organization, you likely don't have those tools, but what you can do is identify an action item for each of them. So it could be people that participate in the Christmas social, it could be people that come to events like this, it could be people that reply to a certain type of email, it could be people that sign petitions. But in the end, your final goal needs to be several steps down from those analytic touch points, because it'll help you assess how far along people are and whether you have the ability to accelerate them. In this situation, you'll see that awareness is basically, most things we do is basically because of social factors. So, friends, things we read, things that our friends are looking at. These are important. So if our friends are talking about Bernie Sanders, we're inherently starting to get flooded by it. Now, none of us are Americans. There might be a couple in the room, but did we all get sucked in? It's absolutely crazy. This is not one of our political options, but we all got sucked in. And this is just because it's this kind of viral feed. It's, things on your feed just start influencing you. And it's the same way with charities and such. So interest, that is the moment that they've gone from like, oh, this thing looks kind of cool, and they actually go and start reading about you. They're actually interested in what you do. So your Google Analytics can actually help you on this. A lot of your tracking tools can help you identify when people are actually looking at your content. These people are much more engaged than simply the passive ones. Action. These are people who have done something. They've replied to something. They've attended something. They've shown interest above and beyond simply free content. Trust. These are people who want to be part of your community. They're people who care. They are people who, are starting to be part of your team and part of the investment. And the investment is truly what we're all looking for, because we've all been there. It is hard to keep people engaged. And it's likely because they've jumped a couple steps, realize it's not for them, and then leave. Now, that's just a natural part of any relationship, but in the end, there are things through your digital strategy that you can do to support that nurturing of those leads.
Yeah, so it's really, even if you kind of feel like you're making it up at the beginning when you don't necessarily have all of the details yet, sometimes it's really helpful to kind of put yourself in the shoes of who those people are in all of those 4 roles that we were talking about originally, and you can add a 5th if you want for people who would become employees. But sometimes it's good to just put yourself in that mindset and think about what it is that you would see if you were those people, and kind of chart it out a little bit as well. So the next one is powerful storytelling. I'm sure that this is not a surprise to any of you, and I'm sure that most of you are very familiar with storytelling and how to make the best use out of it. But really and truly, storytelling is absolutely probably one of the most powerful things that you can do. It's been shown that that information that comes with a story, especially ones that are emotional, are remembered significantly more often. People are more likely to act on it and they're more likely to share that information. It activates a different part of your brain than just pure information as well. So, really it is about creating a connection with people, but at the end of the day too, you want to remove barriers. So something that feels too big or too heavy has a barrier behind it. So we want to really make it simple for people. So we put some kind of guidelines here to just help with that. So, becoming more than an organization. So really making sure that your story connects with whatever it is that does make you unique, and really celebrating and cherishing that. Appealing to people's emotions, their hopes, their wants, and sometimes their fears, but unless you know that that's part of what makes you unique. And being real and not lying. People can tell inauthenticity very quickly, so just making sure that you're personal, you are authentic, and that you have a personality and a tone to you. So something where people can feel like it's almost a friend, someone that they understand and they can really grasp their minds on what it is that you're doing. And then in terms of removing barriers, it's really just about making it really simple for people to feel connected to it, and also having some sort of surprise and some sort of hook in it. So that's fairly simple, and I will reiterate again, celebrate accomplishments, celebrate achievements, celebrate people who are involved in celebratory stories. So I wanted to show this one, maybe I'll show it first.
Birthdays, we all have them. Some of us love the attention, and some of us, well, wish we could skip the whole thing. No matter how you feel about your big day, you can use your birthday to change the world. Meet Lori.
I'm Lori.
For his 6th birthday, Lori asked people to donate $6 instead of giving him gifts. His campaign raised $2,386.
All of the money went to Rwanda to help.
That's how it works. Your gifts become gifts for others. Friends and family donate to your campaign, and 100% of the money you raise goes to water projects around the world. And then we show you exactly where it went and who it helped. Whether you're turning 36 or 26 or even just 6, you can use your birthday to change the world. That's a birthday you'll remember forever. charitywater.org/birthday to pledge yours now.
So I don't know how everyone feels about charity water, because I'm sure some of you are like, yay, and some of you are like, they put a lot of their money into advertising, because that was a very expensively produced video. So what I will say is, you don't need to make a video this highly produced. It can even just be simply telling the story of that little boy and showing photos spliced in. It still will have a huge impact, and it still has been proven and shown to have really high watch rates and engagement rates. Oh. There's no space left on here. But what they do really well is they've really nicely incorporated both a story, a celebration, and a call to action for people. So really trying to say, this, no matter what it is, because really a $2,000 donation is not necessarily that high, but it's a huge amount for a young child. And so they've really found a way to celebrate, and they do that quite often. They do a lot of storytelling and celebration, which is likely why they are probably considered one of the more successful social media driven charities and nonprofits. So So I think that, it doesn't need to be this well produced. It's really ultimately about telling that story and then telling people what the end payoff is. Really making people feel like it actually is going to something where they can see the result.
So not to dampen Brittany's message here, but try not to steal other people's ideas. It's generally not a good thing. When we talk about trust and people can catch you in your line, don't try and be charity water. Try to be your own thing. Try to have your own angle. Don't take their gimmick. Everyone can create their own. We all have the ability to create something really freaking cool that involves kids, or puppies, or something. I don't know. But anyway, there are things we can do, and it's very unique to your organization, and it's something that research matters. Your donors, your team will all know that thing. You've probably seen it hundreds of times. It's that thing that's magical that happens every time, but you forget it because you think it's so normal. That part is what's important. That is the thing that may be at the core of your celebration, at the core of what makes your experience unique, of what makes you unique. And that is when you can start creating this experience. That is the thematic piece that goes across it. So again, experiences are intended to be a very unique thing. You can take pieces from here or there, but try to make it very suitable to you. The same way that a strategy for New York City won't work here and vice versa, and the same way my mother lives in Smithers, it won't work there, it sure won't, versus here. But in the end, feel free to borrow things sometimes, but not the whole thing. So I skipped ahead, so I'll just skip one more. So it all takes time. I'm not going to joke about that. It does take a lot of time to build true relationships, but the fact is you are all here because you care. You've all made a large commitment to the causes that are important to you. Many of you in the sort of commitment that's going to take decades, but you may potentially never see the outcome of it. That's how much you care, and that is a truly beautiful thing, and you should celebrate that fact, but also remember that you may be the best resource possible in terms of understanding how to connect to people.
Okay, last video.
Now you can order and pay for Starbucks on your phone and pick it up at the store. Just go to your Starbucks app and press order. Find your favorite drink on the menu. You can customize it with a number of shots, toppings, or flavors. Maybe hazelnut. How about a bite to eat?
They're not our sponsor.
Your order will be sent to the nearest store.
Okay, so the reason we showed this is that you guys should all just replicate Starbucks. But in reality,